I was reading a report yesterday. The Kremlin and Beijing are trying to get their own monetary system going to where they don't have to use the US dollar. This is going to be really bad news for us. It will definitely cause more hyperinflation. Also, we're having a deaf situation in this country, and there's all kinds of other craziness going on in the world. So let's go ahead and talk about it and get to it. So I want to address some other things. You know, this channel, other prepping channels, everyone talks about being prepared. So what comes to mind when you think about being prepared? Are you thinking about the zombie apocalypse, an EMP, a nuclear weapon being dropped, mass coronal ejection, or are you thinking of disasters? Are you thinking about tornadoes, hurricanes, earthquakes, floods? There's a myriad of things that can happen. And this last year, they've all happened, but the big one is the pandemic. And I want to address what I heard on a podcast that I was listening to. It's called Mike Force. The gentleman that does that podcast, his name is Mike Glover. He's a retired Green Beret Sergeant Major. Most of his career was as a Special Forces operator. The man is nails. He owns a company called Fieldcraft Survival. And I'll put a link to Mike Force podcast and Fieldcraft Survival in the description below. But in his podcast, he was talking about something that Candace Owens had brought up. And it was really interesting. I don't know if I could even put it out as eloquently as he said, but I will have a link, and it's worth your time to listen to this podcast. You know, I'm just a dumb grunt. And I'm smart enough to start being prepared. And they brought up in his podcast, he brought up a cyber pandemic, which is 100% going to happen. It already started to happen with the pipeline, with our fuel. There's talk about ransomware in one of the HR companies that provides paychecks to people. And all they have to do is hit a few things at one time, and we're in trouble. We're already crippled with our economy. You know, inflation is starting to soar. A report just came out. The inflation for wholesale goods has gone up 10%. That's going to affect us. 10% is huge on wholesale. You know, so these companies are going to eventually have to start raising their prices more. I mean, we are seeing it every time we go to the store. Things cost more, just like a little flat of water. Your 24 or 36 bottles of 16-ounce water that you get, it was up $1 last time we went to the store. Now, it's still relatively cheap, but it still went up $1. So, you know, things to start thinking about are being prepared, and these things are starting to happen now. So, you know, our family, my wife and I, we have our 5 pillars to survival, to surviving and thriving, and it's water, shelter, food, security, and communications. I've done other videos on these things. My first 3 videos I did on emergency preparedness. But, you know, if you really want to be prepared, go a little bit deeper. There's things that I've talked about in my other videos. You know, you can go, and this is things that if you listen to this Mike Force podcast, he brings it up. Sergeant Major Glover. But the reality of it is you can buy all the freeze-dried food you want and have a year's worth of freeze-dried food, and then you get your water and you're set. But do you have enough water to last a year? Of course not. Do you have the ability, maybe some of you do if you have water catchment systems, but do you have the ability to disinfect your water? Make it clean to drink? Do you have the ability to clean your body? Do you have the ability to clean wounds? You know, so if things get bad, and I'm not trying to be doomsday here, but the reality of it is, you know, we're already seeing medical shortages right now. And I highly encourage people, Next time you're at Walmart or Sam's Club or Costco, buy some extra Tylenol. It's relatively inexpensive still. I think it went up $1 in the last year. Get the Tylenol, get the Motrin, get the Aleve, get things you might need. I understand you're on a budget, I'm on a budget. Some people have a lot of disposable income, and that's great. But even with all this disposable income, I understand it is very overwhelming. I mean, it's insanely overwhelming. But it needs to be done. You really need to start thinking about it. So we have 4 different ways to clean our water. Actually 5. I'm not even including boiling it. But we have 5 ways to filter our water to make it drinkable, use it to clean our bodies, use it to clean our dishes. You can only have so much flatware, plastic flatware and paper plates on hand. Eventually you're going to run out of that stuff unless you have a giant storage area. So again, more food for thought. How are you going to get your freeze-dried food rehydrated? Water. Do you have a shelter? Yeah, you live in a house. Do you have a tarp? Do you have a tent in case your house is compromised or it catches on fire? Can you go out in your backyard or out in your driveway and pitch a tent or put up a tarp for shelter? Because shelter is probably the most important thing in our pillars of survival, because if you're exposed to the elements, you're done. And it all depends on where you're living. So if you're up in Maine or Michigan, what you need is going to be different from what I need in Northeast Tennessee. That's going to be different from when I lived in South Florida. And we thought we were prepared in South Florida. We were prepared for a hurricane. It could last a week, but, we really were unprepared. And if we look at what's happening right now, we had these horrible tornadoes rip through the Midwest, and God have mercy on those people. How many of them were prepared? A lot of people, even if, if my house or one of my neighbor's house was taken out by a tornado, I know for a fact that my neighbors have food, and we have this contingency to help each other. But you have to start thinking about these things. You have to start being ahead of the game. Again, it's overwhelming. It can be daunting. I don't care how much money you have. It can be a daunting task. It is for us. But we're constantly evolving. We're constantly trying to find new ways to do things. We think of things to do. We're like, oh yeah, let's try this. Oh, it works. This is a good idea. Some things we're like, oh yeah, let's try this. Didn't work. It failed. You live, you learn. We're doing it before things get really bad. And again, I don't foresee a societal collapse immediately, but if you look around and watch the news, things are getting bad. They're getting really bad. They're letting criminals out that shouldn't be let out. They're letting people into this country that shouldn't be allowed into this country. Left, right, or center, the reality of it is if we're going to be a country, we have to have our borders, and they're just letting everybody in. And I talked about that in my video about the fall of the Roman Empire. And we're doing the exact same thing. So get your shelters, get your food, get your ability to clean water so you can clean your body, so you can clean your wounds, so you can cook your food, so you can stay hydrated. We have a water catchment system. There are natural springs all over the place around here. I might have to do a little bit of walking and portage the water from point A to point B if I run out of my water in my catchment system. But we do have a lot of rain here compared to Southern California or out in the desert. Start thinking about communications. Do you have that survival radio? Do you have a radio that you can hand crank and listen to the news, see what's going on? Do you have the ability to communicate with a neighbor? Walkie Talkies, another inexpensive item. We have a whole bunch of Walkie Talkies. Do you have a ham radio, a Baofeng? You can get those on Amazon. I'll try to put a link to one of the ham radios in the description below. The thing with ham radios is you have to have a license, of course, because you have to have a license to breathe around here or catch a fish to eat and put food on your table. But if it's an emergency and you do not have a license, it is okay to use your ham radio. And if things are really bad, I don't think the government's going to be running around trying to give tickets to people who are using radios. Don't do that, but it's there for an emergency and you can use it for an emergency. If you do get a ham radio, go and do your research, due diligence, and if you want to get a license for it, there's tons of places you can get. You go on YouTube, you can do a Google search, you can get your radio license. There's 3 different tiers, and the 3 different tiers, basically, from what I've read, give you the ability to talk further away to people. So, but a ham radio is a really good idea to have. Security is something also to think about. What kind of security do you have at your house? You know, I have agreements. We have a contingency plan with my neighbors, you know, because all of us think alike and we realize things could get bad. I'm not worried about a mob coming through here right now, but crime is on the rise and we all look out for each other. And, you know, for security purposes, I'm not going to go into details about our security plan, but we live in Northeast Tennessee. We are allowed to have weapons here, and, you know, we're able to secure ourselves. If you're in an urban environment, it's completely different. If you're in a state that doesn't allow you to protect yourself, it's different. But these are things to think about. You know, are you able to proficiently fire anything that you might own? Again, things to think about. You can do all kinds of cool stuff, but you need to try to remain proficient with certain items. And even with your spouse, you know, I'm lucky. My wife is from Venezuela. She understands how important our Second Amendment is, and we talk to her family, and things are bad down in that country because their government is doing exactly what our government's doing right now. So again, we really need to start thinking about these things. It's not going to be the zombie apocalypse. It is this slow train wreck that is taking place right now with the Kremlin and Beijing going to their own monetary system. That's going to be bad news for us. The Fed yesterday or the day before talked about, you know, taking away the pandemic era things they had in place, and they have to start raising interest rates to get that money back in. It's going to cause more inflation, and that's going to be really bad. It happened to President Carter, and it's happening to President Biden right now. So again, think about getting your food, water, shelter, security, communications, get these things in place. Talk to your neighbors. If you think I'm full of crap, let me know in the description, you know, in the comments below. Tell me what you think. Tell me if you think you have the ability to secure yourself, your family, and you have enough food. I've said it all the time. I know it's like I'm beating a dead horse in the brain, but if you do these things up front, you'll be better off. You can not just survive, you can thrive. And like I said, I don't foresee it just collapsing, but as the food starts getting shorter, you know, what if you want to go down and get some vegetables and that vegetable is not there? You need to start thinking about these things. If you live in an apartment, you can grow things on the porch. I talked about that. If you have a garden, get a garden. If you live in an urban environment, you can buy a canner. When you're at the grocery store and you see something on sale, vegetables or meats, you can buy those things and you can can them. Now, canning takes up a lot of room and you need to get really intuitive on how you store things, but you can do it. You can store things under the bed. You can store things in the closet. You can store things if you have a little laundry room. You can find the places to store your food. Try to become more self-sufficient. So if you start canning things and they're on sale, put it off to the side, but rotate it so you stay proficient and efficient with what you were doing and what you were canning. Now, the stuff will last for years, but you want to try to rotate it. And if you can't and things get really bad, you keep going to the grocery store, buying what you can. And when they don't have something, you can pull it out and you can cook it. I'm going to leave a link in the description below to some of the people that I watch on YouTube for canning. We started canning when we moved here to Northeast Tennessee. We knew nothing about it. We figured it out. We watched videos. We read. There is this book right here. Excuse me. This is the gold standard for canning, okay? Blue Book Guide to Preserving. It tells you what you can and can't do. That's one of many books that we have. We have a library. It's not big, it's small, but every time if I go to Barnes and Nobles to get my son something, if I'm in a store and I see books on sale, I always go over there and I look. If there's anything I think that might be helpful and it's relatively inexpensive, I buy it. I buy things on Amazon. I have things downloaded on an iPad. I have as much as I can to position myself better if things go bad. And if I can do it, you can do it. I hope this video gets you thinking about things. Things are getting bad. And with the deaf problem we have right now, or AdBlue, and China and Russia talking about going off the monetary system, you know, what's to stop other countries from going to this same monetary system? You know, the dollar's going to be dead. They keep printing more of it. It's simple economics. It's going to devaluate. Inflation's going to hit, and our money's going to be worthless. So think. Be prepared. It's daunting, but you can do it. I hope this video was helpful. I hope you take it to heart. I don't come here and stand in front of the camera to talk to myself. I hope this gets out to people. It's very important. We have to get ready for you, for your family, your friends. We can make it through this. Think about it. Leave some comments below. Let me know what you think about the video. Again, if you think I'm full of it, let me know. If you think it's a bad video, hit the dislike button. But if you liked it, hit the like button and share it with your friends. I really appreciate it. It'll help this channel, help support us. That's it for me. I'm out. Have a great day.